Zoom. Look at us making it all happen.
Uh,
So, Greg, tell us a little bit about what you do and why you're so passionate about it. Because I really I see the passion through you. Like it's quite beautiful.
yeah, gosh. Um, so what I do is I'm a mindfulness-based wellness and performance coach. That is technically my title. Um, I work one-on-one, I work with groups. I really work with individuals who are very intentional and are motivated to make change. As I know it is the same with you in your practice, right? But helping people integrate the practice of mindfulness into their lives so that they can um, pay more attention, be more aware, start to navigate through their lives with that awareness and that presence. And, we all have a unique lived experience and the things that we're experiencing and the challenges and the amazingness and everything in between. And this practice of mindfulness really allows people to see what's actually happening and to perhaps make different choices in their lives with respect to their well-being on all levels, mind, body, spirit. I came into this practice a number of years ago because of my own struggles, which I think you'd probably agree to me to some on some level that we make change when we're really kind of pushed to the edge, and we're there's a struggle that's present for us, and we need to find our way through it. So it was no different for me. And the practice of mindfulness meditation, yoga, these practices kind of got me going on my path back in the day. And it's been this one incredible journey since then. And just working with people, with groups, in corporate, with athletes. My demographic is very wide and broad because I think this is a human being thing. It's we all can be more aware and navigate through our lives in a different way and make different choices. So that's the broad strokes of what I do. There's practices and strategies and things that I put in place or present to clients, and it's always up to them. As you know, like this is really important stuff to me, but it's got to be integrated and embodied. So I present this and I guide people and I support people along the way. Like you say, I'm very passionate about it, so I get excited when somebody is facing a challenge and they want to work through it, and then you see the growth, and that's the stuff that keeps me coming back to the practice, both for myself personally and for the people that I work with. So that's the long and short of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And there was so much just in that in that amount of information. And I want to loop back on a few things. So the word mindfulness, like we've all heard of this word mindfulness, right? Um, how is it different from maybe what people are thinking of mindfulness? Because, I'm in the same a similar business as well, and people are like, yeah, okay, I just need to relax. But reality is that's not really what's happening. So maybe you could even teach us what your version or what your outcome for mindfulness is, and maybe some of the clients that you've seen slow down and be more mindful and actually have a lot more success in life and live life.
Yeah, that last point is really the essence of it, is living life with greater awareness. And I think when people hear the word or they read about it, or maybe they go to a yoga class or a meditation session, I think we're really conditioned as human beings to really live inside of our heads and with our thoughts and our stories. And a lot of that serves us and we need it. Um, but when you're mindful, you're starting to really cultivate an ability to pay attention to what is happening in the present moment.
Mhm.
And when you start to pay attention, you realize that there's a lot going on for us from moment to moment, both internally and externally. And our default setting with a lot of this is just to think about it and to like understand it. And again, that's important, but quite often we can get lost in it and
Mhm.
maybe not see the situation maybe as clearly as we would need to or would like to. And our minds are powerful things, and they tell us things, and sometimes it's not accurate. And that can be problematic for us with our physical, mental, emotional well-being. So it really is about training our brains, because we haven't been taught this stuff. We come out of the womb and it's like we just go and we learn and we have all these experiences, but we don't understand what's happening within us. And specifically with the brain, I think it's stuff that, I think back, man, if I would have known this as a child, or as a youth, or into my teens and my 20s, like I had to learn it the hard way because, there was struggles. And so we haven't been taught. And I think that's where I get passionate about this, is teaching people the skills, how to train in attention and awareness. And it's not just about attention and awareness, it's about the attitude, right? Because when we start to become more aware and we start to see more clearly what's happening within us and around us, like a kind heart is so integral to this. Because as amazing as it is to be a human, and it is so much goodness, it's incredibly challenging too, right? To see some of these things. So to be compassionate and kind with ourselves as we're becoming more aware is kind of integral to this. So back to your question, this is a long-winded answer for you, but it's present moment awareness with a kind attitude. And that when we start to build that muscle, we start to be able to see more clearly, and then it just takes us from there.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point because, even in our business is with hypnosis, we have clients that are looking to lose weight, stop smoking, decrease stress, similar to what your business is as well. And it's all about that kind heart because you're giving yourself feedback in so many different ways. And sometimes, we were brought up in a way where feedback wasn't a kind thing or didn't feel like a kind thing. Right. So it's totally different. And I love how you said that, sometimes it can be useful to be in our head and it can also be useful to be external. And it's really interesting in society these days because sometimes we get lost in our head and it can be lonely and scary and boredom. Like there's so much, and we can even tell ourselves a story that is not real at all. We get lost in that ripple effect or that, that dark hole. And I'm sure you can agree with me on this that we see a lot of clients come when they're at that breaking point, when they've just been so lost in their own head. Um, what is one of and maybe there's a couple success stories that you've seen that you like just come to mind for you to be like, you know what, this is why I keep coming back to this because I see the success, I see the results happening, and hey, it's the client doing the success and the results, but it's really cool to see when you have that client or those clients pop up.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up because it does, it keeps us on our path, both on a personal level and a professional level. I think when we see people start to, the light bulb comes on a little bit and they start to make change. So, I mean, I will kind of reference a client that I've been working with for some time now, and you know, not to get in too much of the specifics, but right, mental health challenges, anxiety, um, maybe a little bit of overthinking and kind of entangled in that, and then the physical, mental, emotional ramifications of that, right? That being lost in our heads, which you just kind of spoke to, and then where with this individual where it took him, right? Like and a lot of physical manifestations, anxiety manifests in different ways for us, but a lot of challenges that he was really pushed to the edge. And he came to me a few years back, and we've been working together regularly and then semi-regularly as time has gone on, because his practice is really, it really began to develop, and he started to be able to kind of tame our minds, for lack of a better phrase, tame his mind, right? Just to be present and not want to be distracted or move away from the discomfort that he was feeling. So that foundational skill of just paying attention started to grow, and he started to identify in his body, when this anxiety was arising and some of the physical sensations that he was present with that were really, really uncomfortable. but through the guidance and just teaching him the practice and allowing him to explore it on his own, like that is it's a hard thing for us to do, to feel something that's really, really uncomfortable and stay with it.
Hmm.
Right. And especially when it comes to anxiety for so many people. And I've had this experience with a number of clients is like, and listen, I have had the same experience. Like I can distract and want to get away from the discomfort as well as anybody, but I think more that you bring this skill set on, you learn, okay, like I'm just going to dip my toes in the water with this, right?
Hmm.
See if I can stay for 3 or 4 seconds with this tightening of the chest, or my heart is racing so fast and I'm so in a fearful state that I'm just going to be curious and see if I can just take a breath and see if I can calm myself and feel into it. So that process has been unfolding for him over the last number of years, and he's now gotten to a point where he can be with his the physical sensations, he can label it, name it, and he's got strategies in place that allow him to navigate those moments with that kindness, with that grace, with that awareness. And the level of understanding within himself has grown immensely. So it's been this really, really cool path to see it evolve, and it's always a work in progress. You probably feel the same way with some of the clients that you work with. It's like this is ongoing. Like it's we grow and learn, but it's always it's never perfection, right? We don't get to a point where it's like, oh man, got it all figured out. All is good. Now I can live my life in peace and just enjoy. Like it's like this is deeply rooted stuff. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
of just I'm just so proud, and I'm so I get excited for him as he's walked this path, and I know he feels it, and he's incredibly grateful. So it's a really a win-win.
Hmm. Hmm. And just like sharing so much of that, just, a couple things that you had mentioned was having the human experience is way, way different than trying to analyze it or trying to figure it out. So he had to build that muscle. And, it was on his own path and his own trial and error. And it was cool to watch him build that muscle. And like you said, there's no end game to any of this. There's no aha, I'm here. There's this constant, unraveling and next levels. And I think that's really interesting that you say that, because a lot of us as human beings expect there to be an end game. Like, oh, once I've done this course or this program, I'm good. I've got it. But reality is we're always learning. And Greg, you and I met through a learning process as well. Like we've met through the Capillary Wave and the Holistic Education crew. What's up, Greg? Part of the Holistic Education crew. A little shout out to Nelson as well. And yeah, it's really that cool process. We actually had a weight loss success class this morning. So what we do is we put a group, all of our weight loss clients online on Zoom, and we did water, putting our hands in water and ice water. So we would actually have the human experience, and we did it 3 times to see how different the experience would be every time for you to move through that uncomfortable, like you were talking about, that uncomfortable, that frustration. But we did it in real time to actually give people the human experience to move through it,
Yes.
which was really, really cool, which is very similar to what you're talking with your client about and this success that your client's seen. So tell me a little bit about ADHD, this attention is huge right now. And for someone who has ADHD, and I'm going through a process with my son with ADHD, which, it's hard. Something the doctor actually said to me when we were getting my younger son diagnosed is he said, good luck. Everyone has ADHD now. Which I feel like you can really speak to this because the attention span of people.
It's I mean, and it's amped up literally daily. It feels like that aspect of our physiology, within our brain, our ability to stay and pay attention to anything for an extended period of time is just there's just so much external and internal stimuli that pulls us around, right? So again, back to the brain and how amazing it is and how we need those thoughts, but it's we don't realize that it is trainable, right? And I think, if you have ADHD, and I agree with that statement. I think we are all to some degree distracted. And, that's at the best of times. At the worst of times, it's highly distracted. So
Mhm.
that diagnosis, I think, is challenging, but from my perspective, I see it all as hopeful because it is trainable, right? It's not easy to take a scattered mind and a distracted mind and it's just so many things going on. And you know but you realize that, if you realize the capacity, I think that's the starting point, is to understand that your brain is malleable, right? Like our neural pathways, they can change, right? We can train different regions of the brain with different practices that allow us to develop attention and focus. I shouldn't say I always, but for the most part with clients with this piece, because it really is foundational, I encourage them to start small, right? Because if you are ADHD, it's like to sit in a 15 or 20-minute meditation and to try is like can feel like a really daunting task. So taking it off in small bites, making it accessible, right? Like you don't have to you don't have to connect in a really, really deep way with the meditation. And I think back to your original point on what mindfulness is, I think a lot of people think, okay, I'm going to get into meditation and my mind should be still. Like I shouldn't have thoughts. That is a false, a false belief, right? We're always going to have those thoughts, but sorry, my text just went off. But if you start small and you realize that it is trainable, then you start to see little steps of progression, right? If you're able to pay attention to your hands, you can pay attention to anything, right, Kristen? You can pay attention to your hands. You can pay attention to your breath. You can pay attention to something that you're hearing. Even for just a couple of seconds, you're flexing that muscle, that part, that region of the brain that trains that attention and that presence. So difficult, yes, especially with ADHD, but possible, absolutely.
Yeah, and I love that you say possible, and it feels like there's almost like a relief. Like, oh, thank goodness. Like I'm not just put in a box or, my kid's not just put in a box. There's so many options and I love that you value the brain.
Yes.
Like it's such a beautiful thing to have all those cylinders firing off. It means you can keep up with a lot. And there's the beauty of that and it's nice to have a few more gears.
Oh. And who knew? Who knew this was possible? When I started on this path, I was like, what, the brain changes? Like, this is beyond, like, the science of it is just so fascinating to me. Like, I mean, I know you probably feel the same. I think we're a miracle. Like this body that we live in, we're a miracle. If you think of the intelligence within the body that is just happening, we're not telling the heart to beat, we're not telling the eyes to see. There's wisdom, like profound wisdom that is beyond anything that we can conceive.
Mhm.
But especially with the brain, it's like the brain, everything is sourced from our brains. So to understand it even a little bit and to see the mass potential, sorry, um, I think is profound. It's profound. It's the starting point. When you see that, it's like, oh my gosh, like I can work with this. And like if I put a little effort in, gosh, we go to the gym, like we go for a walk, we run, we work our physical body, like the rest of it. It's like, why can't we train the brain?
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
can. Yeah.
And what if kids started doing this earlier in life? Like what if they learned this in like elementary school? How would that shift society?
Oh my goodness. Like, where do you want to start with this? Like, think of your children and like just the ability to even simply pause,
Mhm.
right? Just pause, just practice that muscle of pausing before you speak or before you act or before you take in a text message and reply. It's like just that muscle in and of itself. And with youth, it's like man, it's a different world. Like I can't imagine what it would be like to be a child or growing up in this day and age with all of the stimuli
Mhm.
stuff. So like to be able to navigate relationships and to be able to navigate, your school and your athletics and your social, and to not be lost in it all, have an ability to step back from it and say, man, I don't know if this dynamic in this relationship for me, like, regardless of the age, like, and I know our brains are developing along the way up until we're 25, they're not fully developed, but like, what if you could start to develop that skill when you were young and say, you know what, like, this doesn't feel right,
Mhm.
as opposed to just like, this is what I'm going to do because everybody else is doing it, like that peer pressure.
Mhm.
It takes great courage to move in a different direction, regardless of what age we're at, but like the implications in every aspect of our lived experience can start to be impacted in a more skillful, wise, passionate kind. Like we're just more aware, we're just more clear seeing, and that's where I see like the potential for this on all levels to be profound. Yeah, that's a
Mhm.
lot. Spoke
Yeah.
very. It's a lot, but it's like this big can of worms that like, man, this is so exciting and hopeful.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we really do talk about our youth as our future, right? And if we can do that, like, hey, you and I or as adults, we're implementing this as well, but sometimes it can be frustrating as adults because we haven't had this skill forever. Or we've kind of been stuck in that loop of just doing what everyone else is doing, which is why we kind of got into our business because there was an end date for that. Yeah,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
very interesting. And would do you work with a lot of kids?
I don't I primarily know, but I have in the past. So it's not a primary part of my business, but I have, if there's a request that comes in, which has on occasion, I'll do it. I think the one challenge with that is that I know, and you're a parent, so you know this, it's like, you want absolutely nothing but the best for your child, and you see where, there could be some modalities that even at a young age, it could be integrated to help. And children and youth are young and they don't see it the same way. So, to have an intention to be motivated with this is, I think, is the challenge I found in you working with children or youth or even young adults, is that they don't care about it as much as their parents do, right? Like, they're like, yeah, mom and dad think I should be going to a therapist or doing, starting into yoga or, meditation, whatever it is. It's like, so I throw that in there as that's just been in my experience. It's not that I wouldn't entertain it, but there's certain inherent challenges that come with working with younger individuals.
Yeah, and I think that's a really valid point. And the cool thing about therapists is they're actually, like, from what I've seen, is they're trying to also embrace this aspect of what you teach adults. You had mentioned before that you work with athletes. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's athletics is in my DNA. Like, from a young child, I was always in competitive athletes, and it carried on throughout my life.
What
Hockey
did
was
you do as a young child?
I played everything, everything. I was like never not playing something, but the primary sports that kind of like took hold in the early going were, well, hockey was primary, baseball, basketball, right? That the competitive hockey scene, it can be pretty intense, and so I followed that. I ended up being able to go to school in the States and play hockey down there in university, and then I stayed in as a NCAA hockey coach. So I was in it for a number of years, and so it's a passion of mine, and I mean, I think in terms of just being more emotionally regulated and balanced and attention and focus, as we spoke to, those are all such important parts of being an athlete. Um, but it's also about integrating the performance piece, right? So using some of these practices to really gain insight as to how your mind works. And, if you have a bad shift when you come off the ice, like, what's the inner narrative? Like, are you getting down on yourself? Are you, looking at all the negative things that you did during that shift, or was there something positive in there? So there's a lot to explore with the practices in terms of how you perform in any sport. And so I'm passionate about that, but I think that well-being is so integrated into it. Like, being well in mind and body and performance are like they go hand in hand, right? Because when you're more grounded and more calm and you're not gripping the stick and you're more able to manage your stressors, it's like we just show up in a better state. We do better work. I know I do better work when I'm more grounded and self-regulated. I think
Mhm.
more clearly. And it's the same thing with athletes. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And from my experience, even with my kids being in, rep hockey and rep sports, the amount of pressure that athletes put on themselves is like it is insane. And I speak to this. I have a recent client who went pretty far with hockey, and then she had some issues and some surgeries that kind of got in the way, and now she's totally lost. So speak to that a little bit, how, maybe the pressure and just seeing the bigger picture a little bit too, how your skills help with that.
Gosh. You have a couple hours here, Kristen, because this is such a fascinating and interesting part of this conversation because it speaks on a broader level, like how we get identified with anything, be it, with school, with athletics, our social prowess, like who are we as humans and how do we define ourselves? And I'll speak to my own experience. I mean, my definition growing up was I was an athlete and I always achieved. And then it led into the classroom. And now I was like, I had this identity as like, I got to keep pushing the bar. And it served me very well, but there's a lot of pressure. You can have a high expectation and you can have an inner critic that's a part of this experience as well. And I don't think I'm certainly not unique in this. I think a lot of humans have this inner
Mhm.
narrative that is like pretty tough. So with that identity that we create through athletics and set that bar and we achieve, and it's amazing. There's so much good that comes with that. It can be the flip side of that is like, when it's done or when I get injured or there's something that compromises that identity in some way, you lose a game, you lose a season, you don't score as many goals as you thought you would or you expected to. There can be suffering. There can be that inner narrative, that inner dialogue that really, really can just can be really, really hard. And I just know it firsthand. And I know a lot of athletes experience this. And to be able to work with that, like to see it and to be aware of it and to, you know, I call it my inner coach, right? To have an inner coach that's supportive, that holds you accountable, but doesn't beat you up when you don't achieve. It doesn't pile on and kick you when you're down. It's like, you've had that coach where they want the best for you. They're going to push you, but they're also going to be supportive and kind and understanding along the way, right? That balance. So that is something that we can cultivate from within. Like, what if you had that inner coach inside, like wanting the best for you, pushing you, holding you accountable, but also picking you up when maybe things don't go the way you want them to? Like, I never had that within me as I was growing up, but this practice allows you, or it can allow you to create that inner landscape where you have that mindset, that attitude from within. And that makes all the difference in the world, whether it's, dealing with, failure or difficulty or injury, or, you come to the end of your career. It's like, okay, like, what's the inner voice saying? How can I work with that? So, yeah, that's the long and short of it. I probably went on a little bit long about this, but it's a huge piece for athletes. Huge.
Yeah, and no, I think it was great. And I think it's also giving everyone the whole picture, right? The long and short of it can only be so short in the whole picture. And I only talk about athletes because I feel like this is a bit more of a spotlight, but like you said, every human being has a version of this, which is really cool. So is there any short techniques or anything that you could teach us while we're live?
Yeah. Like we live in this body and we have like physical sensations that are happening all the time. And a lot of them we're very unconscious with. We don't have an awareness because because we are a lot of the time from the neck up. So a really simple practice, and you can use this with any of your senses, is just start to use those senses to bring you into the present moment. And by that, I mean, just pay attention, right? Like we're both sitting here and I'm guessing you have your feet on the floor.
Mhm.
I've got my feet on the floor. Like I can consciously take my attention and feel the pressure points, the sensation of touch, right? And you can feel your toes and you can feel the balls of your feet and your heels, and you may feel the sensation of weight. Or maybe I get a little bit of tingling going on. I got my bare feet, so there's a little bit of an energy that I'm feeling through my feet, right? So we can start to pay attention through our senses, through our body, to be here. And it's very general or abstract, or kind of, it may sound a bit like master of the obvious, of course. Like I can feel of course I'm here. But you notice when you pay attention to your feet, how quickly the mind just says, that's not entertaining. Like I got stuff to do. I got to think about this. I've got to make choices. I've got all true. But what if for a moment we just brought our attention to our body, and specifically with our feet, and we just, like, things are really amped up. I've got a lot on the go. I'm feeling anxious. Okay, I'm going to pause and just feel my feet. And I'm going to hold that attention for as long as I can. And I'm going to get distracted and I'm going to bring my attention back. I'm going to do this for a minute. You do that over time. Again, I come back to the brain. You are literally changing the structure and function of your brain to be present, right? To not be in the emotional center of the brain, the amygdala, the emotional center that takes over when we are in worry and fear and what if, and like, it's like that part of the brain that allows you to see clearly is offline.
Mhm.
So that moment is a small moment, but what if you started to build on those moments of just paying attention to your senses in some way? I gave you the example of the feet, but again, it could be something that you're hearing. It could be, it could be my hands are interlaced. I can feel my fingers, right? I can feel my hips anchored onto the chair, right? There's a sensation that you can pay attention to, and you can turn it into a meditation. You don't have to, but you can. Like there's a million different ways to do this, but the senses are really the portal. I call it the portal into presence, right? The portal into being here, because your feet, they can't be in tomorrow. They can't be in next week. Your feet are always your feet are always here, right?
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
as an anchor. It's that anchor, like, oh my gosh, toot, 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 come to my feet. So I don't know if that resonates, but it's something.
Yeah.
It's like I just use it automatically. I default. Okay, feeling stressed. Okay, I'm worrying. Boom, right to my body.
Yeah, and looping back to that gratefulness, because when you actually told me to look at my or, tap into my feet, I have really fuzzy slippers on. And I didn't realize how grateful I am that my feet are in these fuzzy slippers. And I haven't taken a moment, and I've had these slippers for a couple years, and I haven't taken a moment to just be grateful that I have fuzzy slippers on. So thank you for that.
That's that's so profound. Like it makes me smile and giggle a bit, but it's so true. Like gratitude woven into these practices, like that's a whole other conversation, gratitude. But it's like I love that you had that insight. You're like, oh my God, these feel really good on my feet right now. Like, and they're warm, and like that's a good feeling. And that's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, and just looping back to what you said previously in the conversation, it's building the muscle too. And I love how you kind of turn down the volume of the pressure where this could be built at any stage or any time, and you don't have to start with, you don't have to be a Buddhist going to silent retreats for days. It could just be starting with a minute or two a day.
Start with a breath, two or three breaths, just like it's just, we get it conceptually. And I time after time when I talk to people about this and I present in groups or where however I'm working with people, it's like you get it conceptually, but it's just we have to remember, and this is, kind of the formal definition, or the Buddhist definition of mindfulness is to remember, right? To remember to be in the present moment, right? Can we come out of the story and remember to feel our feet and remember to be present with what we're drinking or we're eating. Like, right? We haven't, it's not top of mind for us. So,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
that's,
and I think yeah, and I think it's looping back to that connection, just connecting to those small pieces. And us as humans, we need connection. It's a basic need of life. Just like food and water and sleep, connection is there too. So, Greg, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing everything. Where can people find you if they want to get into this line of work with you or if they want to practice with you?
yeah. So I have a website. It's gregklymcoaching.com. And I have all my offerings on there. I'm on social media at Greg Klym Coaching, KLYM Coaching, and Facebook. So those are my th oh, and LinkedIn as well. So I'm on those platforms on a regular basis. And I'm teaching yoga at Moto Yoga in Burlington, which I have a great passion for that practice as well. And I'm a huge fan of that studio. I've been at it for a number of years. So as a student and as a teacher there. Um, I think that's it. Yeah.
Cool. And I'll put all of your information underneath this when I repost the recording as well. Actually, that's how Greg and I first met way back in the day in a Etobicoke at yoga. So it's
Great.
kind of cool. It's kind of cool to be open to, you may meet people along the way and you may not connect with them at first, but maybe later in your journey you connect with them or you connect with a different way of looking at things as well, just like meditation, how great Greg is speaking to that now.
Yeah, we never know what's going to unfold for us. So I really appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the questions, the thoughtfulness, and yeah, I think this has been amazing. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Greg, for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you. And please, please, if you need Greg's information, reach out to me or reach out under the social media post. And thanks for joining us. Happy Hump Day. All right. I'm just going to end the recording.